the approach I've taken. I've really believed in job creation coming in mass from the private sector. And that's really the only way to create the millions of jobs that are needed to match the desires and the aspirations of Africa's young people with their means. So, what we have is the technology that Chris was speaking about has created an exponential increase in everyone's aspirations. But the Malthusian problem is that their means are only increasing arithmetically until we have some kind of takeoff on major job creation. So I've always taken it from a private sector perspective.
And Jake, what is the thing you've seen as you travel in Africa and work with Africans that convinces you a really deep and meaningful change is afoot?
Well, I'll go back to my first experience in Africa. And by background, I'm from the Midwest. I come from a family that had and has no background in Africa. Aubrey and I are very similar in that way. And my first experience in Africa goes back to when I was 19 years old. And I went kind of by accident on a year abroad trip and ended up in Sierra Leone working with the local Sierra Leonean Red Cross Society. And that was during the 90s when Africa was a pretty tricky place to travel in some places. And some of my impressions on that first trip, they obviously changed my course of study. They changed my career because I've continued to do stuff with Africa throughout my career academically, and then business media, and then finally this book. But one of the things that I came away with, even at a time of war in Sierra Leone, was I saw tremendous potential. And I never really I saw a lot of very challenging things in West Africa, but I never came away with this thesis that I needed to help Africans. I came away with this thesis that this place has just tremendous potential, but what it's lacking are certain favorable structural circumstances. When Aubrey and I talk about our foundations with Africa, I think both of us, in our experience that evolved from the first time we ever went to the continent, kind of continue to develop that thesis that absolutely tremendous potential, especially on the human side, but very challenging structural circumstances. So to move forward to why we've kind of changed our view now and have a fairly upbeat assessment of Africa, it's some of these structural circumstances. So two things: the structural circumstances are changing, and we go into detail on that in the book. But basically, you have better governance, you have better infrastructure coming. You have broadband coming, you have investment flowing into Africa in record amounts, you have new partnerships. So you have better structural circumstances. But the most important thing that I see, and I think from our research with the book, that I see connecting with that is this tremendously talented cadre of Africans that have emerged over the last